Hi, I'm Jamie Carragher, and you are listening to Across the Park podcast.
Welcome to Across the Park podcast, the only place you can hear banter and debate weekly from both sides of Stanley Park, whether it be blue or red. Sponsored by Their Clothing and Campbell Kings Northwest. Hello and welcome to Across the Park podcast, the only place you can hear banter and debate from both sides of Stanley Park in the build-up to the Merseyside derby. This is a two-parter, so myself, Ian Mills, joined by my red brother, Phil Roberts tonight, and then tomorrow the four lads are going to be joined. It's Gary Judge, Andrew Price, Terry McGivern, and Gary Murray in a big two-parter. Tonight me and Phil, tomorrow four of them, and it's a big two-parter build-up to the Merseyside derby. Phil, are you nervous?
Mate, usually I am, but I'll be honest, I've got all the confidence going into this one. The last couple of results
I bet you have.
we've had, we've had, you know, but you never know with the derby, do you? That's the thing.
We're going to get right. We're going to get into it. Look, the big thing about this week's podcasts is tonight we've got two very special guests. It's a man who's won the Champions League for Liverpool. He's played in a number of Merseyside derbies in red. It's Mr. Jamie Carragher is going to join us tonight. And also from my side, the blue sides, we've got a man who scored in a scramble at the Cop End in royal blue, Mr. Kevin Campbell. So tonight, me and Phil are going to be joined by Jamie Carragher and Kevin Campbell. Tomorrow's show, arguably, Phil, even better. They've got some more guests, but we'll let them sort that tomorrow night. We'll concentrate on this show tonight, which is the best derby preview out of the two of them. Derby preview number one. Phil, I think we have to, unfortunately for me, and very fortunately for you, we have to very quickly look back at the games that both clubs have just played. First of all, you done the instant match reaction, which was, I laughed my head off, honestly. It was really good. But Liverpool 4, Southampton 0.
Yes.
Do you want to follow up on the instant match reaction? Some final thoughts on that one?
Yeah, it was a weird game, you know, Millsy, because Liverpool were like scintillating, but also not quite at the races at the same time, if that makes sense. Any Reds who watch the game will know what I mean. Because some of the goals we put together, you're just looking at it saying, that was phenomenal play. That was world-class build-up, leaving Diogo Jota with a tap in. But at the same time, things weren't coming off. We kept overhitting passes. There was a number of mistakes at the back where Alisson had to come in and save us. And Alisson had a fantastic game. So if your keepers had a great game, how good actually have you been? So it was a weird one. Yeah. We kind of didn't get out of second gear, but we were absolutely scintillating at the same time. I said on the podcast, I was really, on the instant match, I was really pleased with Andy Robertson, because there's been a lot of talk in the city and on the podcast actually of Robertson potentially losing his place. He's been out of form, his crossing's not being great. At the same time, Kostas Tsimikas has come in, he's looked brilliant, loads of assists. So people were talking about Robertson losing his place, but he come on in midweek in Europe. Robertson looked like he had a point to prove. He's played there again against Arsenal at the weekend, and he's looked absolutely brilliant. Southampton, sorry. He's looked absolutely breathtaking. He's risen to the occasion. He's risen to the pressure, and it was great to see. I'm really happy to see it, because it was one man you want in a derby. It's Andy Robertson at his best. I know he's Scottish, but he's like a Scouser, and he's one of us, and he gets it. He really proper gets it. So I'm glad that he's in form, and I think he'll be a shoe-in for the derby. But yeah, apart from that, just you know, getting in the goals, two great wins on the bounce for Liverpool, loads and loads of goals. I think we put 18 games together now, we're scoring 3 goals or more in consecutively. It hasn't been done since the 20s, and it doesn't bode well for the Blues, because it means you're going to have to get 3 or 4 goals to get a goal, mate. And I'm quite quietly confident that that's not going to happen.
It's no, it's. I can categorically state it is not going to happen. Everton are scoring 4 goals on Wednesday. Phil, can we just skip the Everton review? I just can't be asked. Can we?
No, we can't.
Mate,
No,
it's just,
do you know what, Mill? I've missed it actually. Was it really bad?
it's hard because I know this is a derby preview and I want to give it everything, but watching that today, I don't know. It's hard, mate. It's really hard at the minute. I think that there was a fan protest today. There was a banner in the away end today saying we think NSNO, nil Saturday Southampton, is our motto. Why don't the board feel like that? So there's a movement now towards maybe some anger towards the board, the team on the pitch, mate. It's just at the minute, it's really, really bad. It's really bad, and I understand a lot of Blues who were saying when we get our players fit. I think when Dominic Calvert-Lewin is fit again, it's of course going to make a massive difference. When Richarlison is back from suspension, it's going to be massive. Tamari Gray played 20 minutes today. Excuse me. Abdoulaye Doucouré played the whole game today. Massive, but it's just, mate, it's not the best time at the minute, and I'm sort of now, my patience is wearing a little bit thin, and I hate to say this on a derby show because I want to be going, I want to be going tit for tat with you, and I want to be giving it all sorts, and maybe I can a little bit later on once I get this out of my system, but mate, at the minute, it's I'm quite low. I really am.
I've seen some scenes, Millsy, from the end of the game, and the Everton players come over to clap the fans. You don't get well received, let's put it that way. So you can't come on here and bargain anything else, can you? All the Blues know what's going on and what the score is at the minute. It's just where to point blame is the hard thing for Everton at the moment, isn't it? It's like no one knows whose fault it is.
No, and I think that's what you've said there. No one knows whose fault it is. That's the massive problem. Whose fault is it? Is it the manager? Is it the director of football? Is it the owner? Is it the chairman? Is it the CEO? Is it the head of youth development? Who the hell is to blame at the minute? Because all of those people should share some responsibility. It's not going right at all. I mean, our director of football, who apparently was really highly regarded in bringing players through, and those players could be profitable for Everton Football Club, or they could do really well. I've not seen it. Our head of youth development is bringing no one through. The CEO, the owner, the chairman, they are trusting people who are letting this club down. And what I can say, Phil, is before we move on to the derby, is we've got someone on that touchline right now who, through no fault of his own, is beaming red colours, and the fans are bypassing him for blame. They're going beyond him. That's where the route is, because it's very easy for me and our supporters to say he's getting it wrong. And yes, of course he's getting it wrong. This Ron John nonsense is a mess. To play him is a joke. But the anger's bypassing him, and to bypass Rafa Benitez as the Everton manager, for that anger to bypass him, that shows where the problems are. The root of the football club at the minute, there's £500 million. Me and you mess all the time up. You do the net spend thing, and we have a bit of a joke. And I say to you, you spend £500 million, and you'll counter by saying it's Coutinho bought the main stands or whatever it was. Everton have legitimately spent £500 million, and this is where we are.
Yeah, no structure, no plan. No sort of philosophy at the top of the club that filters through. And you deserve better. Look, I know very well there's Reds out there saying these have got a chance of going down. How funny would that be and all that? But we're not really about that on this podcast. Everton deserve better. They're a proper institution, and it's worrying times. It is a mess. It's a total mess, and needs sorting out from top to bottom, doesn't it? But I think people need to be left to do their jobs. Too many cooks is what it looks like from the outside.
Oh, absolutely. And there was a great article, in the Athletic the other week, and it says if you want to answer from Everton, you've got to ring 3 people. How does that work? How?
I mean, FSG, let's not like, they're not perfect. Lord knows they're not perfect, but they stay out of it. They're not telling, you know what I mean? They stay right out of it, out of football. They make mistakes. We kick off. They tend to correct the mistake. But it feels like there's too many of the Everton hierarchy have big impact on the football and decisions, and they're not football men necessarily, are they?
No, and the footballing men who have been entrusted into doing the football decisions have got it so wrong. I mean, and we on the podcast, we strive for really good relationships with the football clubs, Liverpool and Everton, and I don't want to say too much out of turn because I don't want to damage that relationship. Of fucking hell, man, Marcel Brands has got it so wrong, and he's got it that wrong that I'm going back now in my head thinking, was fucking Marco Silva that bad? Was he let down by Marcel Brands in that 2019 summer window when he wanted Zaha, when he wanted Decore, and he wanted Kurt Zuma permanently, and he was given Moise Kean, Gabaman, and Alex Iwobi, and he lost his job in December, Marco Silva. Now, I'm not saying it for one moment that Marco Silva is a great manager or even a great coach, but it makes you think that, you know, when you put that into words, when you realise like these decision makers are getting it so wrong at the top. But look, that's where I am, and I'm here tonight, Phil. I am going to battle it out with you. I will give it, any Evertonian who's still with me tonight, I promise you, I will give it my best shot tonight to go toe-to-toe with Phil. Everton versus Liverpool tonight. There's no games, but we're going to preview the derby. We're going to look back on a few derbies as well. Phil, should we bring our first guest in?
Let's do it. Why not?
Let's do it. Right. I am not very tech savvy, but I'm going to try and bring our first guest in. If it goes a little bit wrong for a second or two, leave it with me. Across the Park podcast is delighted to welcome back a friend of the show, a man who scored in a scramble in the blue shirt at the Cop End. It is, of course, Super Kevin Campbell. First of all, Super Kev, thank you for returning back to the podcast. How are you doing?
Good to be back, and I'm fine. I'm doing really good, thank you. Obviously, looking forward to more football coming up, and it's always interesting speaking to you guys.
Look, I'm really nervous. I'm not going to lie. People like you who have won this game, for people like me, I'm hoping will make me feel a lot better. But before we get into the Merseyside derby, which is coming up at Goodison Park on the 1st of December, what's it like to be a player in the build-up to a big Merseyside derby? Because with no disrespect to you or I, we've been the underdogs on and off the park a number of times. What is that like at Belfield day to day?
Well, the atmosphere and the pressure's already being ramped up from now, as you could imagine.
Yeah.
Everyone knows the derby's coming up. Families are split down the middle, aren't they? You know, and the Blues want the win desperately because, you know, we don't really get many wins against the opposition. And when we do get it, we make sure we enjoy it. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, that's all being ramped up now. And I think it's a lot more determination. You have to be a very determined because, you know, look, when you see what the other side have done, they've done great. They've won titles, they've won trophies. And there we are, you know, on the blue side, where we're trying to get to that level. That's what we crave more than anything. So, you know, there's got to be a lot of determination amongst the players to want to go out there, compete, and get that win.
What was it like for you, Kevin, as a player in the Everton team, to have some local lads next to you? Because obviously you were the captain going into games, so your attitude could never be questioned. But was it important to have a local feel in the squad, the likes of Michael Ball, Franny Jeffers, who you played with?
100%. I mean, Unzi, you know, you got all these lads in and around it, and you obviously you've mingled with families and friends. And you know how much it means to them. You know, Tony Grant at the time was there. It means a lot. You know, being on the blue side, it means a hell of a lot. So I took to it automatically, to be honest. You know, my first game for Everton was a Merseyside derby. Which was brilliant. So I get it. I got it. And I still feel it now. now that I'm not even playing anymore, but the derby's coming up. I still get them. I never got butterflies when I'm playing, but I get butterflies now, when I'm off the pitch. So it's always a good one to have local lads.
Yeah, look, I'm biased, and I'm sure you are as well. For me, there's no better place than Goodison Park under the lights. Now, if you magnify that and you say it's a big Merseyside derby, what's it like, Kev, at Goodison Park when that Z cars hits under the floodlights at Goodison to walk out? I know you said you don't get nervous, but is it extra special when it's a big game at Goodison for you?
Oh, it's definitely special. I mean, Goodison Park is a special stadium anyway, let alone a derby, and then under the lights. That adds a little bit more spice, doesn't it? Under the floodlights and an evening game, and to be playing your biggest rivals, obviously. But, coming out of the tunnel, and because you come from underneath, and then you come up, that wall of noise just hits you. And again, the 12th man is the Goodison faithful. And they do make a hell of a lot of noise, and they make a hell of a racket, to try and will the team to win. So it's absolutely brilliant. It really is.
Yeah. I think it's going to be important the likes of me play our part next week on Wednesday. We've always tried to, me and my friends who've been, even when you were playing there, we've always tried to be that 12th man. It's great to hear the ex-captain of the football club who's been in big derby games to say that as well. But just, for anybody who's new to this show, we are a YouTube channel now, but Super Kev joined us when we were a podcast. So there is a podcast with Kevin on our website where he gives us over an hour of his time on his Everton career, which is fantastic, over on the website. But Kevin, I can't not ask you again. It's on the podcast, September 1999. You scored in a scramble at the Cop End, and you are never going to buy a pint at Goodison Park again for that alone. Forget everything else that you did, which is fantastic, but for that alone. When you look back, is that still a real career highlight for you?
That was one of them, and that was a significant highlight, obviously, because of what happened and where it was, and how early I scored. That's the other thing, there was, it ended up being, we had 10 and they had 9 men in the end.
Yeah, that's right.
But scoring after, 6 minutes, that's still a hell of a long way to go in the game. And, we hung on in there, the Annie Road, all the Blues at the Annie Road were going crazy. And even the Blues in the Cop were going crazy when it hit the back of the net. So that still holds dearly to my heart. But, I look at what we done together and staying up that first season where I was there on loan, that nobody could take that game against West Ham away. That atmosphere in the stadium that day was incredible. And with 20 minutes to go, and 20 minutes to go, and Everton is coming on the pitch and praying and doing all sorts of stuff. That still, to this day, that still fills me with so much joy.
Yeah, all the stories from the West Ham game, Kevin signing on loan, Kevin signing permanently, the Merseyside derby. There's even a story about the late, great Walter Smith letting the players go for a bacon butty after the Merseyside derby win. It's all on the podcast. But look, Kevin, let's concentrate on this derby coming up. I'm not going to lie, I'm nervous already. I don't think that this Everton team are on the level of Liverpool, and some Evertonians might not like me saying that publicly. They might not want you to say it, but for me, I don't think we're at the level. That's never stopped us before. Can Everton beat Liverpool in this Merseyside derby for you?
Can they? Yes, of course they can. It's a game of football, and a lot of it comes down to on the day. We've seen that happen before. The level, I totally get you, because let's be honest, Liverpool's level for the last, 3 seasons has been incredible. The level has been incredible, and to say they've won the Champions League and won the league title, and they went very close to winning the title again the season before that. It's testimony to what they're doing across the park. Let's be honest. This game we don't look, we definitely don't like them. That's for sure. We definitely don't like them in this game. But there is. Me personally, and there is a little bit of respect there because of what they achieved, but that goes out the window now. It's on our patch, and they've not come and beaten us at Goodison for a few years now.
That's right, yeah.
And I just think there might be some of the main boys back. I think that's the key. We need our main players back, and with the main team, we'll give anyone a game.
Yeah.
That's for sure. In this derby, we'll give them more than a game. Can we beat them? Yes, we can. The key to everything is the mindset. You've got to have the right mindset on the day, and you've got to want to dig in. That's the thing. You've got to want to make the game physical, take them out of their stride. We know the way they play. Everton have to come up with the game plan to nullify their threat and cause a threat at the other end. And, there's no reason why Everton can't do it, although it's going to be a tough ask.
Yeah, I mean, you're saying they're the big players. I think for me, Kevin, if you get Yerry Mina back, if you get Abdoulaye Doucouré back, those physical players who can do what you've just said and unsettle Liverpool and really get into them, be a threat at set pieces. For me, I agree completely. It's crucial. A big name in this derby, as the game gets closer, the media are going to ramp it up, is the Everton manager, Mr. Rafael Benitez. It's his first Merseyside derby whilst wearing blue. If you were in the Everton team going into this game, would that be a factor for you? Would you have to just block that out, the loads of noise that's going to happen with Rafa this week?
No, the noise is going to be there. The noise was there when he came into the club. The noise is going to be there for his first one, especially his first one. And, what might be really welcome is he's not going to want to fail. He's going to want to win because you win the derby and some of those doubters might just come a little bit more on side.
Yes, absolutely.
That's what we need. We need Rafa Benitez to get the boys going, get them playing, and get a victory. And if he can get a victory, then it will settle a few nerves, because the results haven't been great of late. So there's nothing better than a Merseyside derby to try and get things back on track.
Yeah, okay. I'm fine. Just before you do go, Kevin, just two more questions. I'm not going to pin you on a prediction. I think that's too harsh. But in your view, you're looking ahead to this game. How is it going to pan out? Is it going to be close? Is it going to be ferocious? How do you see the game panning out?
All of the above. I think it's going to be close. I think Everton play Liverpool pretty well at home. I think was it last season, which finished 2-2, Liverpool took the lead a couple of times and Everton pegged them back.
Yeah.
So, I'd like it to be the other way round and Everton scoring first, obviously. That would be welcome. But again, it's gonna come down to the day. Got to defend well. That's the key. If you don't defend properly, this Liverpool team will burn you. So got to defend properly. And I truly believe Everton will have opportunities to hurt Liverpool. They will. The key is they've got to be able to take it, and I'd like to see a Dominic Calvert-Lewin back. That would give Everton a real big boost. And as you said, Mina, Doucouré, Calvert-Lewin, that's the spine. Yeah. We all know what you need. You need a good, strong spine. And if them boys are back, or majority of them are back, I think Everton could do something.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's a really big chance for the manager. It's a really big chance for the players. Finally, Kevin, where are you watching the game? Are you going to be at Goodison? Are you going to be working? Are you going to be at home with the beer? Where are you watching it?
I'm not. Listen, I'll be honest with you. I'm not too sure where I'm going to be because there's a few things in the pipeline where I might have to be at Goodison.
Wow,
so
okay.
Watch this space. But I can guarantee you I'll probably be working at some stage, at some place.
Okay, super, Kev. I've said this to you in the past, but I'm saying it to you again now. If you're there on Wednesday and we win, you have my number. There's a bottle of beer on myself for you, my man, for everything you've done for Everton Football Club. And again, for coming on Across the Park podcast, Mr. Super Kevin Campbell, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ian, and everybody listening. Come on, you Blues, you know the script.
Wow, so one of my heroes, Phil, Super Kevin Campbell, has just given us his thought. Is there anything that you took from that you want to maybe bounce around? Or?
Well, he's so likeable, isn't he? That's the first thing. He's very charismatic, and it's boss for a professional player to have that sort of attitude and respect for the club. I listened to the previous podcast, and even as a Red, I really like Kev Campbell. But no, he's talking about you mentioned the levels, which everyone knows. No one's stupid. The difference in sort of ability and levels is huge. But you've got to think back in the 90s when Everton were doing bits in derbies, it was about roughing Liverpool up. You knew you could do that to us, but I fancy Liverpool in a fight against Everton, to be honest. I don't see us getting roughed up.
Can that not be done now? Can you not be roughed up? Is that what you're saying? Or
I look at the two sides, and you look at Fabinho and Henderson in the middle. I don't think you're roughing them up. I think they're winning. They're going to win that fight. Salah and Mane are absolute animals. I don't think you're kicking them into touch. Van Dijk at the back. You know what I mean? I don't see that. I don't see.
I don't know. I'm not having Salah and Mane animals. I'm just not. I think they are world class players, but I think they can be roughed up, and I think you're talking Fabinho and Henderson. I'll counter with Alan and Decore, who are no mugs. They'll have a fight.
Yeah, I mean, if that's Everton's only route to victory, I think you need to be worried. And I've just been having a look while the interview was on there, because I know Liverpool have scored 10 goals in the last 3 Premier League games. I'm just wondering how many goals Everton scored in their last 3.
You've put me on the spot. I don't know. So nothing against Brentford, nothing against Tottenham, and nothing against Man City. So none. Yeah.
So none.
Maybe we're missing. I hate to go on about this because I used to give it to you last season when you tried to do it, but we're missing such a big outlet, and I think we've struggled to find a way to score goals. That's a big thing. If we're going to score a goal on Wednesday and we're going to win by the odd goal, I think Everton need Yerry Mina to be attacking crosses. I think Yerry Mina needs to be in that box causing all sorts. I think if Everton are going to score on Wednesday night, for me, it's probably some sort of set piece, or if you pin someone on that channel where Trent is, and you play the second ball and you get a cross in the box from Luca Dean, I think that's the way we score. We're not going to outplay you. We're not going to put 20 passes together, or we're not going to outsprint you. And
listen,
I think Everton can score a goal on Wednesday, and then the counter to that is, can we keep you out?
Yeah, I mean, look, I've been part of the 12th man on big European nights, midweek, under the lights, against teams who were well better than Liverpool, man for man. And the 12th man has a big part to play. The worry for Everton is, with Rafa Benitez and all that, if Everton go down early, and heaven forbid if you just go 2 goals down within 20 minutes or so, what's that 12th man going to do at that point? And, that's the real worry, innit? I think you need to make sure we don't score quick. I think you've got to set up early to quieten things down, and
I think Everton have probably got to play the game in stages, whether that's 10-minute stages or 15-minute stages. But I think if Everton get to half an hour into the game and it's 0-0, I think that's a big thing for Everton, and it'll be a big thing for the crowd to look at the clock and say, look, and I hate saying this, and there's probably Blues screaming at their telly or their tablets now because I'm giving you so much credit. But for me, I think if Everton got to 30 minutes at 0-0, I think the crowds would look at that and go, okay, this is a game now. I think if you're 1 or 2-0 up at that point, I think it's mission impossible, really.
Yeah. Mills, I said at the top of the show, like, I usually am nervous for derbies, particularly Goodison derbies, but for some reason at the minute, I'm not nervous for this one. I'm just and there's probably Red screaming at me saying, stop jinxing us, whatever you say, don't say that, but I'm wearing my heart on my sleeve, and I just think the way we're putting goals in for fun. You on the ale there, are you?
Yeah, nice cold bottle of Heineken, yeah.
I think you need it after today, mate.
Mate, I'm on it all week, trust me.
But yeah, the amount of goals we've been scoring and the amount of goals Everton have been scoring just makes me feel really confident.
Okay, well, we'll get to maybe predictions and stuff later, but is it a good chance to bring our second guest in?
Yeah, I think it is. A really special guest.
Delighted to be joined by Mr. Jamie Carragher. Right, Across the Park podcast is delighted to welcome back a friend of the show, somebody who gave us 2 hours of his time when we were a podcast talking all things Everton, majority Liverpool, including some Merseyside derbies. It is, of course, Mr. Jamie Carragher. Jamie, thanks for coming back to Across the Park podcast. How are you doing?
Yeah, all good. Thanks, Ian. Thanks for having me back, mate.
No worries. The Reds are absolutely gutted their times to do this. I've clashed with yours, so I've been roped in to sort of do the Liverpool section of the podcast. So I'm either going to be
well,
more
devastated.
devastated.
Time talking about Liverpool anyway, don't you? You
well, I do. I don't know how more upset I'm going to be either today or next Wednesday. It depends how easy you go on me. But look, we'll get to next Wednesday. But first of all, like I just said at the start of the show, we are a YouTube channel now. But when we were a podcast, Jamie gave us 2 hours of his time on a great podcast talking Merseyside derbies. And Jamie, you did say at the end of that podcast that your favourite Merseyside derby as a player, it was close. It was going to be the semi-final at Wembley, but you picked the Gary Mack game at Goodison Park. 2 big games to play in. I mean, the first one, I imagine the pressure was unbearable for you as a local lad. And the second one was during that season where Liverpool were going for nearly everything, including Champions League. What's it like to play in a Merseyside derby with such high stakes?
It's brilliant. I loved it. If I could have had the choice, I'd have played in derbies every week. I absolutely loved them. I loved the build up to them in the echo and the local press and the supporters and my mates and family. It always helped because, listen, for more often than not, we were a better team than Everton. So I can assure you I probably felt a little bit different as a kid when I knew Liverpool obviously were top dogs and you're going into them with trepidation. We could almost more often than not go in with a bit of confidence, knowing that if we played well, that we'd more often than not come out winning the game. So maybe that changed me my attitude towards derby games as a player. But yeah, I absolutely loved them. I adored them. And I actually love going to Goodison more than playing there at Anfield, really. I think it made it more of a leveler, and the atmosphere there when you're going into that cauldron of Goodison Park.
Yeah,
certainly under the lights in a night game as it will be on Wednesday. It'll definitely add to the atmosphere.
Yeah. So you were a local lad growing up. You're quite honest in saying you were Evertonian, but when now you're part of the Liverpool team as a player and you're a local lad, are you grabbing some of these foreigners and telling them what it means, or are they naturally getting it because of who they're playing for and where they are?
Yeah, I think that's a little bit of a misconception that, it's only the local lads who understand it. Everybody has got a derby game where they come from.
Yeah.
So wherever they're brought up or whatever team they support or wherever they've played for in the past, everybody has derby games. They're not just exclusive to us in our city. We think ours is the best out there, but I think everyone else thinks the same about their derby game. So, yeah, you'd always have that extra little bit of edge. Not just with being a local lad, with it being a game against Everton and a derby game and you're putting that red shirt on. But yeah, I'd say me and Steve would be really pumped up for these games, definitely when we were playing. And I'm sure that would transmit itself to the foreign players a little bit more. But they were well aware of how important it was, to the club and how important it was to the supporters, really, because I think a good performance or a goal in a derby game. I mean, look at Divock Origi. I mean, the love he's had of Liverpool supporters on the back of goals against Everton. So I think, the foreign players on both sides are well aware how important it is.
Does that level go up? Does it start at Melwood in the first training session, building up to it? Are you straight into players straight to there, or is it gradual? Is it the morning of where you're then buzzing, or?
No, I'd always be the week before. It was always a build-up. I mean, for us, normally we'd have a midweek game.
Yeah.
Whether it was Europe or a league, you didn't really have too many free midweeks. Liverpool have got obviously a midweek, a European game. And then the derby this time falls in a midweek. So both teams will have weekend games. A little slight advantage to Liverpool. I think Liverpool play on Saturday, Everton play Sunday. And with their, obviously, injury problems, it's a quick turnaround that for Everton. Certainly for players who aren't used to playing games in quick succession. I think Liverpool players are through, playing in Europe as well. So that's definitely an advantage to Liverpool. But for me, the build-up, yeah. I mean, you be in training, little comments here and there, and it just gradually builds up as the game got closer.
I promised the lads, the Reds, I can't mention injuries. I just can't do it. I've been sworn to it because of what you went through last season. I wouldn't have it when the Reds were going on last season, so I've been sworn to secrecy. I can't bring injuries up. But seeing as you have, I can counter it. Do you look at this as? I mean, I'm not going to lie. We're not at the level. Everton aren't at the level Liverpool on. But do you look at the fact that Everton are missing some really big players as a really good time to play Everton in this derby?
Yeah, without a doubt. Right through the spine of the team. Yerry Mina at the back's the best centre-back. I think certainly has been this season. I think Decore's been the best midfielder and Calvert-Lewin speaks for itself. So, yeah, I mean, whether I think Decore may be back, Yerry Mina may be back, but it doesn't look like Calvert-Lewin will be back. So it's a quick turnaround if those two players are going to come back in, and to whether Rafa would risk them after being out for so long with injuries, Decore and Yerry Mina. you're so desperate not to lose a derby game that you can sometimes come back too quick. And that happened to me in a derby game, and I come back and played really poorly in a game at Goodison, just through desperation to play in a derby game. So that'll be in Rafa's mind as well, because what he won't want to do is bring someone back too quickly just because it's Liverpool and then lose them again for another 4 to 6 weeks. He will not want that. But I think Rafa Benitez will be well aware how important this game is, certainly if Brentford doesn't go particularly well as well.
How do you think, you're probably the best person to ask this on our show, how do you think Rafa is going to set Everton up on Wednesday night?
He'll make them difficult to beat. He won't go punch for punch with Liverpool because he knows his team wouldn't be able to cope with that. And he's not averse to setting up his team up. Certainly when he was the Liverpool manager, certainly a big European game, we were playing against top opposition. At times we just bide our time and wait for our right moments. And I just think that's what Everton will do. The difficulty is that the support will be desperate for Everton to be sort of energetic, intense, winning challenges. And I think that will be the case because it's impossible to stop that as a manager. The players get emotional because of the derby game. But Rafa will have a plan to be, compact, as he always says. That's a word he always mentions now as Everton manager and when he was Liverpool manager. So he'll try and make it difficult for Liverpool. And he'll try and set up a game plan to stop Liverpool. It won't be a case of we're going to take on Liverpool. It will be, okay, let's not play from the back too much because Liverpool are great at pressing, so we won't do that. So I imagine Everton will go direct quite a lot. They'll try and keep the ball away from Virgil van Dijk. So they'll go to Trent's side, I think, very direct, try and pick second balls up and see where that takes them. And then when Liverpool have possession, I don't think they'll be too high up the pitch, Everton. But certainly when he gets to around the halfway line, I think he'll want his team to be really aggressive and try and play in the counter-attack.
And the flip question to that is, how do you think Liverpool will set up? And I asked that question not because I've not watched you, not because I don't know, but I get the impression last year there was a couple of comments from the manager, Jurgen Klopp, after the Goodison game, where a few challenges went in and it caused disruption to your season. And he sort of said, he needs a couple of weeks after that. He wouldn't want to play Everton again straight after it. And I see little comments like that he was really, really pissed off by that game. Do you think that's going to have an impact into the fact he's going to want blood at Goodison Park on Wednesday? Is he going to set up to really go and get Everton? Or
no, I don't think so, because I think that plays right into Everton's hands, and I think that would be a silly thing to do. I always felt in derby games, Liverpool, certainly when I played, we were at our best when we were emotional, but it was controlled. Right. Whereas sometimes I felt Everton got a little bit too emotional, always getting players sent off, the crowd getting involved. And I think if Liverpool make this an emotional game and get carried away, that's playing right into Everton's hands, and it becomes a derby game from sort of 20 years ago, and there's tackles flying in left, right and centre. Liverpool don't want that type of game. Liverpool have just got to be controlled and almost treat it like another game. I know it's not, but I think Liverpool will have the majority of the ball and have just got to play their game and not get too focused on it being a derby or retribution for what happened last season. Nothing like that. Because as I said, that's exactly what Everton was once. And I think that was Jurgen Klopp speaking at the time very emotionally and understandably so. But I think that's well over 12 months ago now. You've got to move on from that. And, that is football. Sometimes, people get bad injuries. There's bad tackles. It could be a Liverpool player doing a poor challenge on an Everton player, So I'm always very wary to attack teams or players for bad challenges or diving or all these things, because you've got to be very careful, because your own player could do it the week after, and then what it's like, we're all scrambling then trying to defend our own players. So I just think it unfortunately is part of football. We don't want to see it, but it happens.
Okay, just two more questions before you do go, Jamie. I'll be there next week. I'll be watching it from the park ends. I might be behind my seats for the majority of it, but I'll be there. Are you going to be there? Are you working? Are you going on the away ends? Where are you?
No, I'm not going. I'm trying to get a ticket for my son at the moment. No, I'm not going to go. I went to one when I first stopped playing. The first season I stopped playing. It was a brilliant game, 3-3. I think Daniel Sturridge scored in the last minute. I'd actually left. I thought we lost 3-2. It was under Roberto Martinez was the manager. And I was in the away end that time. But no, I won't go. I'll watch it on TV. We haven't got the rights for this one, Sky. So I'll be tweeting away, shall we say, as the game's going on. I'll be giving my input.
Lots of rods. And then finally, Cara, how's the game going to go? I'm not going to ask you for a prediction. I think that's unfair, but how do you see the game actually going on Wednesday?
Well, I think and it was the same mentality I used to always have playing Everton. I think if Liverpool play well, they'll win. and it's about Everton will raise the game. Everton will always raise the game in a derby game. I mean, at the moment, Everton aren't playing particularly well, so it's not too difficult to raise it, really. But they will, the crowd, the energy, the pressure they'll put on the referee, just the noise of the crowd, the intimidation. That's what I love about Goodison Park in derby games. You know, the energy the crowd can bring. And so I think we will see a better Everton than what we've seen in the last few weeks. But as I said, if Liverpool play well, they'll win, and that's the sort of mentality they have to have going into the game, because it's a really important game for both teams, obviously. But for Liverpool can't afford Chelsea to get too far in front of them. They can't, because they look a real proper machine at the moment. So they've just got Chelsea in sight at the moment, and they can't afford to let them go too far out of that.
Massive game, massive Merseyside derby. There's so much riding on it, and it's Rafa Benitez's first game as Everton manager, first Merseyside derby, as Everton manager. There's so much to talk about, but we've only got you for 10 minutes or so. But Cara, we absolutely appreciate you coming back on Across the Park podcast. Thank you so much.
Cheers, mate. Thanks a lot.
Okay, Phil. So we've just heard from JB Carragher. Friends of the show, great to have Carragher on. But is it as simple for you as what he just said? If Liverpool play well, Liverpool win?
Well, you know what, Millsy, I said before that I can't see too many ways that Everton can even go about trying to win this game. You know that I'm a fan of like boxing and the MMA and all that, and when two fighters go together and there's a skill gap, often what the tactic is to get in the head, to get them emotional, to start, it comes away from the skill. And it comes more into something else. And that's what Carragher was speaking to then about the derby. And, I was thinking about, well, who could I imagine that happening to? And I can imagine possibly Henderson and possibly Robertson getting riled up. If you can get at them and get in their heads and put a horrible challenge in or, something like that. And that's a little window of opportunity for Everton. And obviously, Carragher was talking about getting in behind Trent, which is what everyone tries to do against Liverpool. I think everyone knows that. So it shows you that there are things that can be done, and Everton will raise the game. But what Carragher said there, if Liverpool don't rise to that, if they can just treat it as a normal game, and it does just become about the levels, then it should be a routine win, a comfortable win. And I expect, I always say that Jurgen Klopp, he's a master of psychology, as most of the top managers are, and I think he'll know that, and he'll be getting that into the players prior to the game. You mentioned that he was emotional after the last one, and hopefully he's got that out of his system. I think that's what Klopp does. I think he gets it out of his system straight after the game, and sometimes it can be a bit over the top, a little bit too emotional, at times even a little bit petulant, but I think he gets it out of his system and he puts it to bed, and he doesn't revisit that. I don't think that'll be in the mind.
Okay, well, here's a question for you then, Phil. I asked Cara about that. I said that Jurgen Klopp, and it was actually before the Anfield derby. It was, so we're talking 4 months after that Goodison derby, where you had a couple of silly fouls that went a little bit wrong. But Klopp said in February, he said that he wouldn't have wanted to play Everton straight after that. So that says to me he was emotional, and you've just said there that you think it's out of a system, but is it out of your system as a football fan, as a Liverpool supporter? Is last season out of your system, or are you still thinking, I would revenge?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I'm a football fan. I haven't got to check my emotions, Millsy. So it's one of them. You took our season away from us with the foul on Van Dijk, and the Thiago one done a lot of damage to us as well. You've played. You talk about injuries. That we had Henderson and Kabak in defence against you when we played you at Anfield. That was proper injury problems, and you done that to us at Anfield. So I'm very emotional. It means a lot to me. Yeah, I haven't forgiven. I haven't forgotten, and I'm looking for blood. I am looking for blood. But you're going on about the injuries here, Millsy. But I'm thinking Decore is likely to be back. Mina's likely to be back. I believe Richarlison should be back.
Yeah, if Yerry Mina makes it, then we are missing Dominic Calvert-Lewin.
We're missing Firmino.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll give you you're missing one and we're missing one, but we're talking the absolute linchpin of how we play. If Dominic Calvert-Lewin played, then he would probably. I mean, I'm not saying he'd get lots of joy against Van Dijk, but I imagine he would switch and he'd go left, he'd go right. He'd try and win aerial duels against your fullbacks. He'd bring players into the game. That would cause you problems. That's a massive, massive loss for us. That Dominic Calvert-Lewin isn't playing on Wednesday.
Yeah, I mean, totally, and I understand what he does for you and the importance. I think it does speak to the difference between the two sides a little bit, because even if we lost Salah and we had Mane, Jota and Origi, yeah, we'd suffer for it, but I don't think we'd be all of a sudden nervous about the game. So it speaks to the difference in the quality in depth, but that's not new to anyone. As you've already said, the money's being spent badly at Everton, and it just goes to show by how dependent you are on this one player.
Pissed up the wall. Okay, so we spoke there to Kevin Campbell about some derby memories. We spoke to Jamie Carragher about some derby memories. But when you look back, Phil, as a fan, at derby memories, what are the first couple that come to mind?
It's moments, really. I don't remember games as well as you do, Mills, especially not from the 90s, because I think we got beat a few times. You
lost everyone. You lost them all.
Yeah, they've certainly been blank. The Gary Mack goal certainly comes to mind. And that was an important game, because I think it was towards the end of the... I feel like it was about March, going in for the run-in, where, as you said in the clip there, we were going for everything, and Champions League was important to us, and that was a big moment. The Origi off the bar and the total mess that Pickford made, that was a funny one. I remember Van Dijk scoring in his first derby. I think it was a cup game, might have been a header.
The FA Cup third round,
and then, Mane scored some great goals against Sturridge.
All right, Phil, fucking on. I said two.
They're the things that come to mind, the moments. I remember moments, I remember goal. There's one horrible moment I remember, which was a goal from Jagielka. That was a horrible moment. But apart from that, yeah, pretty good memories.
If I go back to mine, I think it sounds mad, but there are really good derby memories, because we've had such a treacherous run against you, and you've sort of become, in a horrible way, you've sort of become our bogey side, where it's not only the nerves of the derby, it's like we just can't seem to be able to beat you. And I know we beat you last season at Anfield, but some of my favourite memories, I mean, I go back when I was a really, really young kid. Joe Royal's first game in 1994, where Duncan Ferguson scored at the Gladys Street, and that place just erupted. And that was when I was at an age where you live for that. There was nothing else. There was no money. There was no girls. There was no worries. It was just you had football and school, and to be able to walk into school the next day with your Everton shirt on, winning the Merseyside derby, and you had a new hero. You had this big 6'5" absolute assassin who just become the man. That was great. As an older Evertonian, I think the Andy Johnson derby where we won 3-0, I think that was a really good derby. I always look back at the derby in the FA Cup where Dan Gosling scored. Not sure if you remember it in extra time.
You remember that? I remember the goal. Again, I remember the goal. Yeah. On the edge of the box where he dropped the shoulder and banked one in.
Yeah. And it was one of those. We got to the final that year, the cup final. We had a really hard run. We had Manchester United. We asked Aston Villa, who back then were managed by Martin O'Neill, who were a good team. We had Liverpool. I think you finished second that season. That derby, we drew at Anfield, and we hung on for dear life. We were 1-0 up, and then I think Steven Gerrard made it 1-1, and it was like we hung on for dear life, and we got you back to Goodison, and you went down to 10 men, I think, and you were holding on then. I remember saying to one of the lads, Hopkins, I was sitting next to him in extra time, I said, fucking hell, if we get beat by Liverpool on penalties here, that would just kill me. And it was like 2 minutes removed from penalties, and we and Dan Gosling scored, and the ground was just like. And what I was thinking there, I think everybody was thinking, I think if we get beat by Liverpool on penalties, because you're that fucking spawny, you would have done it too. We did it the bar about 10 times. You know what I mean? So it would have happened. Yeah. That Dan Gosling one was really good, but I think if you had to pin me down and say your favourite derby memory, it would have to be when Big Joe Royle took charge of his first game in 1994. It was just, mate, it was everything. As a young kid, it was everything. I'm surprised you never said there. You know, I'm surprised you never said the semi-final in 2012. I thought that'd be up there for you.
Yeah, I forgot about it, to be honest. Yeah, it's one of
Carragher's. That fucking many, yeah.
That many, yeah, I did. Yeah, that's certainly up there. But
Andy Carroll, wasn't it, late on?
I'm surprised you never said your favourite derby memory was the one where you snapped Van Dijk.
Mate, so that was just
ruined the season for Liverpool.
Yeah, it was.
You know what,
the thing is, I think you went to Palace the next week on about 9-0, didn't you?
Yeah. We didn't suffer the pain for it. It was a bit of a delayed reaction, but
yeah.
I think one of the things that you're talking about, like being nervous lately, going into derbies and stuff like that. I think what we've seen over the last few years is that if Liverpool do Everton can go on a proper skid after it, can't they? For like a number of games. So it's difficult now. I mean, to get back to a serious nature, it's difficult now where I am as an Evertonian, because if the worst happens, excuse me, and I hate to say this on this podcast because I don't want to do this, but it's likely that the worst could happen on Wednesday. I think if that happens, it could be just a really, really bad moment in in our history, and I don't want to think too much about it, but I think you've got the capabilities of really doing some damage to us on Wednesday, and it's so important that we don't let that happen. It really is. What if it's 4-0 on 60 minutes and the Liverpool fans start singing Rafa Benitez?
No, and that's it. Oh, that's it. And it could be, look, you could be up by a couple of goals or even more, and if that away and do sing that, I'm holding on to the fact that we will, like I said at the start of this podcast, we'll play the game in certain moments. You get to 30 minutes, you get to half time, you get to 60. And I think if that does happen, I think the longer we go on in this game, and the more you start thinking, Chelsea, start thinking that we want to win this derby, I think there might be chances for Everton to win that game on Wednesday, but it all counts on us staying in the game. I think if Everton went 1-0 up in the first 5 or 10 minutes, I think that would be a fucking nightmare, as bad as that sounds. I think we just need to, I think we just need to frustrate you and get into it, and the crowds are really important. Is there any side of you, Phil, who are sort of thinking Everton can do us here?
Not really. I mean, I've been trying to be a bit more open-minded, because I don't want to come across on this podcast as like being overly arrogant and stuff like that. But I'm not. I'm being quite calculated about it and just looking at the performances lately and the form and all that. But obviously, emotion comes into it in a derby. And things do, if you can keep it at 0-0, or if Everton can be winning 1-0, and that can get drawn out, and you get towards 60 minutes and it's still the same, emotion can take over, and everything else can go out the window, as it often does. They always say form counts for nothing in a derby, and I should know better, because I've been here many, many times, especially at Goodison, and even though the golf inabilities being vast and the places in the league can sometimes be quite wide, we don't do well at Goodison overall, so I should know. But in this particular form, the particular state of both clubs right now, I'm just really confident. I'm sorry, but it's just the way it is.
All right, fair enough. Look, let's end the podcast. We've got about 4 or 5 minutes left on the podcast. Let's end it with maybe an all-time 11. Who's your goalkeeper?
Is this a combined or my?
Yeah, well, so you give yours, I'll give mine. Who you've seen in Merseyside derbies? Who you've seen? I'll go first. Neville Southall. Beat that one.
I can't beat that one. Alisson's probably top 3 keepers in the world of Oblak, maybe Edison. But Southall was the best in the world at the time, weren't he? So I'll give you Southall graciously.
Okay, some defenders. I'll throw some names in there for me. Phil Jagielka would go in there. I would put Leighton Baines in there. I would put Seamus Coleman in there, and I'd put Big Dave Watson in there. Who would you do?
I would go Jamie Carragher, Scouser, friends of the show, legends of the club, and a man you would want in a derby. But that's not an easy choice because Sami Hyypiä was a colossus of a player and a man you'd want in any game. But obviously Van Dijk walks in, Carragher next to him. You've got to have Trent at right back, for the sheer assists and this type of world-class sort of passing of the ball that he's got in the locker. And then I would go Andy Robertson as well because, like I said before, he's an adopted Scouser. The Scottish, we've got a long history of Scottish players at Liverpool. It goes hand in hand with the club. He's one of us, and he's a man that you would certainly want in a derby.
Okay, I'll go a midfield. Should we do 4-3-3, 4-4-2? What do you want to do?
I need to think about it. Probably Liverpool have been blessed with strikers, so I'll probably go 4-3-3.
Okay, 4-3-3. I will go Big Joe Parkinson, colossal. I will go the late great Gary Speed, what a player, and I'll go the Scourge Liverpool, Tim Cahill.
Okay, I will go Steven Gerrard, the most goals in derbies, I think. He's up there anyway, just behind Rush, I think. I will go. I think I'll go Alonso. Gerrard and Alonso, beautiful together. And third place is difficult. I want to say Henderson. I think if you played against Gerrard, Henderson, and Alonso, that's not a midfield anyone wants to play against. Got a bit of everything.
Okay, front three. I've got to go the big man up front. Big Duncan Ferguson plays centre forward. To his right is Andrei Kanchelskis, and to his left, it's hard because he's not really a winger, but I would play Romelu Lukaku.
Okay. This does take some thinking about because who am I going to leave out? So I think Salah has got to be in there. One of the best players I've ever seen. I think I'll put him on the right. I think just on the left to fit him in because I don't think it matters where you play him. Luis Suarez, beast of a man. You do not want to play him in any game, let alone a derby if he's even more fired up. And I think at the top of that, I think I'm going to leave Torres out, even though he was one of the best in the world. He terrorised Everton. But Robbie Fowler's my boyhood hero. He also terrorised Everton. So I'm going Salah, Fowler, and Suarez.
I tell you what, those two teams, that would be some game, that wouldn't it? That would be a game. There'd be both teams to score would be 1-10 in that game. You'd be buying money. Just a big, massive thank you to our sponsors, as always, Camper Kings UK. Go over to camperkings.co.uk. It is the season. It's a camper van. It doesn't have to be summer. It doesn't have to be late nights. There's an amazing range of camper vans over at camperkings.co.uk and our clothing sponsors as well. Their Clothing, VIR Clothing.com. If you put ATP20 in a checkout, guess what? 20% off, and the same over to Camper Kings if you quote across the park, a free bottle of bubbly and free insurance as well. Happy days. So we're coming to the end of this podcast. Tomorrow's podcast is going to be part 2. So you're going to get Judgy, you're going to get Pricey, you're going to get Gary Murray, going to get Terry, a few more special guests. There's a very big rumour, Phil, and it's doing the rounds on social media. People are right there on bus stops across the city. Is Paddy the Baddie on the podcast tomorrow?
He just might be. You'll have to tune in to find out.
Paddy the Baddie is going to be ankle locking the Blues. That's why I'm on this one and not tomorrow's one. And there's also going to be Stephen Warnock is on tomorrow's podcast, and an Everton legend, FA Cup winner in 1995, Joe Parkinson, is going to be on tomorrow's podcast. Tonight we had Kevin Campbell, we had JB Carragher, we had myself, Ian Mills, we had Phil Roberts. Thank you so much for joining us on the build-up to the biggest, the greatest derby in Wales football. Come on, you Blues!
Up the Reds.